Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. And today we're talking about Superman, more specifically James Gunn's Superman, and of course the inspirations that he has got for this version of the character. Whether he's pulling from old comic book iterations, animated series, he's just got a lot of different sources of inspiration, as do a lot of directors when they take on a project of this scale. So today we want to go through that. We want to talk about, what that means. We want to talk about how he's going to incorporate that. Obviously, if you're watching, you can probably see that the logo is already sort of that Kingdom Come-esque version of the logo. The colors are pretty classic, but as far as the shades of red and yellow, that varies depending on which version of Superman we're talking about. But as far as what all the images that he posted on Threads not that long ago, we want to go through those one by one and really get a better idea of what that means for the movie that we're going to get in 2025. So to do that and so much more today, I've got with me, as always, John. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. I this was something I kind of really wanted to talk about ever since James Gunn released those images because I think it's like kind of an important thing to talk about. It was kind of similar to my thoughts on when Matt Reeves released a bunch of his comic book um inspiration for the Batman, how it wasn't just like the same two comic books, or it was like, oh, it's Dark Knight Returns and like I don't know, just like something like, oh, Dark Knight Returns and, year one. Okay, great. So we're getting like something that's like a little more variety, and it's, you know, he's going to all these like sort of different sources. And yeah, I think that that's important and worthy of talking about. And I kind of just wanted to go through each image. I have more to talk about. When it comes to certain images than others, but I really wanted to showcase like why, James Gunn's various sources are really, really great and how that can work from a surface level point of view for the film or deeper within the film. And I really appreciate this. So I liked how he posted this a couple weeks ago. So we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's get into it. Actually, before we do get into it, I wanted to ask you, how much do you think? Because the question that Mystical Maniac 2 asked James Gunn, which is on screen, um, and that really is what prompted him to respond with all these images. He asked, like, besides Dawn or Superman, what are your other inspirations for making your version of Superman? So the first part of that statement, besides Dawn or Superman, how much do you think James Gunn is inspired by that Christopher Reeves, the Richard Donner Superman?
I think like a fair amount that kind of everybody is at some point when they're making a Superman film, Superman project, I should say, because Superman film is kind of a rarity. It's mainly Superman TV that kind of gets all the attention because that's usually where the character shines and that's what gets greenlit.
Right.
Because I mean, we've only gotten like 3 Superman movies, um, for for this entire century, while we've gotten what, like 4 or 5 Batman movies. So
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. But
I mean,
I
hey,
think like,
I keep telling you, like, DC is the house that's Batman built.
yeah,
He's been holding it up this whole time. Where's Superman been, the last 20, 30 years?
I think that just comes down to the fact that WB are fucking
Yeah.
morons and don't know what to do with the character. The fact that we're actually getting something now is like, Jesus Christ. Um, but yeah, I think that's like kind of like that's what you go back to like each time, because that was the first real superhero movie. Like that was the movie. Everyone, sure, I think like maybe you could do it as like a sort of Superman 78 walk so Batman 89 could run, because Superman 78 made a lot of money, was a huge success for the time. It's the template. But 89 Batman was like a cultural phenomenon that grinded the entire country to a halt to like make way for Batman Mania or Batmania. So there was also that as well. But
Yeah. I
with
mean, it
with
was
Superman
crazy.
70,
some of
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
but
like,
also
going back
Superman, like, you will believe a man can fly, right?
yeah,
Like,
you'll
it's
believe and that like, such a
and we
fucking
believed.
great tagline. One of the best
Oh, yeah.
taglines of all
It's
time.
it's the
Um,
simplicity of it, it's
yeah,
just good.
because it's like we did, like, they
Mhm.
still hold up. Like, those effects still hold up to this day.
Right.
But even then, it like Superman 78, it's just like it's set that is like ground zero. That was like that set up everything. We owe like almost the entirety of superheroes on the big screen to Superman. So even if you're not a Superman movie, that's what they go back to. Like infamously, Kevin Feige, oh, they always watch the first Superman movie before they do any production, which could be good, but it's also kind of bad because then you kind of lose the variety of it all.
Right.
And
Right.
that's kind of showing its true colors in this day and age when a lot of people are kind of
It's formulaic. Right.
I wouldn't say
Right.
moving away towards Marvel movies. They're just kind of seeing like, oh, we're not kind of getting the same boring CGI fest over and over again with lackluster villains, even worse heroes, and it's just like, eh. But like, it still set the groundwork, and that's still important to go back to. So I think like when people say like, oh yeah, I'm making a Superman movie, and or I'm making a superhero movie. The inspiration is partly Christopher Reeve Superman. It's like, yeah, get in line, like you and everybody else. Like you're not
Right.
special. No, I'm just kidding. But like, it's just like, yeah, of course. It's like it's
Way to
kind of like,
call out Kevin Feige, the most successful producer in the history of Hollywood.
yeah. But it's just like, yeah, it's just kind of like, of course, like
Yeah.
I hate to sound like mean, but it's like, of course, like because it's so obvious. It's like, yeah, that set the groundwork for everything.
Right. Right.
Without that, I don't know how different it would be. Obviously, that's a big what if, but like that we owe
Right.
everything to that movie. We owe a lot to that movie. Maybe not everything, but a lot. So it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, that's
I mean,
sort of
and
the
then
ground.
exactly, and then you know what? Like what they did with the sequels. I mean, the second Superman was great, but then 3 and 4. If you know the story, you know how things really didn't work out. And on the
Yeah.
back end, Warner Brothers wanted the rights back at one point, and then once they did get the rights back, cinematically, it was all about Batman, and we got a bunch of TV Superman, but it wasn't really until Brendan Routh's Superman that we got one back on screen, and even that was a
Mhm.
mixture of scripts sort of mashed together from previous iterations
Yeah.
that ultimately never quite lived up to what they wanted to do. And of course, I'm glad that Christopher Reeve got his, I don't want to call it a send off, but at least a tribute in Smallville. And then of course, we go on to Man of Steel, and people still call that like a VFX glitch. I mean, I don't know if that was a VFX glitch. That was definitely, I mean, maybe it was just something unintentional, but like that scene where Henry Cavill Superman is standing under that
The
world
World
engine
Engine.
and
Yeah. I
taking
feel
taking the
like
beating. Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that's
Looks like Reeve.
too I feel like that's way too, like,
It's a bit of a
convenient.
stretch. It's
It's
a bit
way
of a
too convenient, like, "Oh, it's a
yeah,
glitch." It's like, yeah, okay. I'm
yeah.
sure, like, maybe to them it is, but maybe, like, a VFX artist who was working on that kinda snuck it in there as, like,
VFX
a
artists
little.
are really clever and
Oh,
creative
yeah.
like that. They will sneak in those little signature things. Like for
Mhm.
example, I mean, even before the era of CG, like CGI being so dominant, like back, I think it was what was it what was the some the Steven Spielberg movie, something of the third kind. What was why am I forgetting the
Close
full title?
Encounters of the Third Kind.
Of the third, yeah, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The ship in that movie, it's like this huge thing. It has like these little, and it's like a model. They shot this miniature
Oh,
model,
yeah.
and then optically composited it into the movie rather than digitally compositing it. They had like the little R2D2 and like other Star Wars like models in there just hidden. Like if you, I think I saw at one of the Smithsonian museums in DC, like they had the actual prop model on display, and you could point at and you could look at all the little
Yeah.
references. So like even going back to before the age of CGI being so like a big part of production. I mean, now
Yeah.
you still get practical effects, but back then practical effects were the only way you could do things before the age of computers. So
Yeah,
and,
like,
and
you
even
even
back
had,
then, yeah,
like, in the first Indiana Jones movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, on the
Yeah.
hieroglyphics in the background when he's in the Well of
Right.
Souls, you see C-3PO and R2-D2 there.
Yep.
Another one is Temple of Doom
Mhm.
when they're running away from the club. It's called Club Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why a lot of people are more of like a fun theory, like one that like
Yeah.
people don't actually believe, but it's fun, where it's like the Indiana Jones movies are Han Solo's dreams of when he's stuck in carbonite. Like it's like
Yeah, dude.
that's cute. Like that's
That's
cute.
I mean, that's good headcanon though, right? Like you can never really prove it wrong. I mean, and unless they probably won't ever debunk it. So I'm all for it. Like why not,
Yeah.
But
Um
yeah.
but yeah, it's just like when he goes back to the 78th movie, I know like a lot of people will groan and be like, "Oh, again, another movie that's inspired by Christopher Reeve." It's like, yeah, almost every superhero movie is indirectly inspired by Superman the movie because that's what it set up. I hate to
It
be the
is, yeah.
bearer of bad news. Even Man of Steel with its, you know, mopey Superman and guys
Mhm.
punching and everything's dark and dreary and all that shit. Christopher Reeve, it's in there, and not just
He's
for
done it.
that Easter egg, not for that
Right.
VFX shot. It's in there. It's in the
Mhm.
narrative. Like we have that in there because it just set the groundwork. It'll be forever, like until
Yeah.
humanity gets nuked by aliens or however we'll die out.
And nukes themselves.
It's until the movies die, then
Yeah.
and superhero movies live on to however long they live on. Christopher Reeve Superman is going to be in there.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. It's just a fact. You know.
It's just yeah, it's just as Ice-T would say, that's a fact.
Yeah.
Or however he would say, I can't do it Ice-T accent. But yeah, I mean Christopher Reeve Superman is obviously iconic. We have seen Brendan Dowd kind of don that Kingdom Come Superman suit. We know the logo that we saw in Henry Cavill's suit, very different. A little more classic than of course we've seen the one from Superman and Lois with Tyler I'm forgetting his last name. Um, but there's been some really, really good Superman suits in recent times. The logo that we have now for the Superman movie, it feels like it's a mixture of inspirations. And speaking of which, that's what we're here to talk about. So
Mhm.
I think we have spent enough time going down the Christopher, Reeve and Richard Donner inspiration alley, which
Right.
which I think is valid. Like you said, like it's the first modern superhero movie. Like it's what really started that trend, and even the Supergirl movie that flopped that came out in that around that time, it's all kind of originates from that Christopher Reeve Superman. So beyond just that as inspiration, the user on Threads asked like, what other inspirations do you have for your version of Superman? And to that, James Gunn responded with what was like 10 images.
Yeah.
And each of those, I mean, are a combination of some iconic and then some underrated iterations of Superman and comic book panels and it shot, screen captures from animated movies. There's a lot to get through. So where would you like to start, John? Because we want to, dive into this. Let's talk about each one individually,
Yeah.
and then we can obviously talk about them as a collective, how they maybe connect and how they inspire, the movie. Maybe what elements are we gonna see adapted from those stories of Superman into this movie, and then maybe how does it play into the character of Superman that David Corenswet is gonna portray his version of Clark Kent for the first time in 2025. So the first image I'm gonna pop this up here is that the Flashman Superman, if I'm correct, right?
I think it's just a golden age
The
panel.
Golden Age
Like
Superman?
I think it's just
Yeah,
from a cover or just like a panel from a comic.
yeah,
Not a ton to say about this one, but it's just like again, we're just kind of and we'll go into this as more images are shown. It's just like Gunn is going through all different eras. This is from the golden age. You can clearly see because that's where the Fleischer Superman
yeah,
got the S from the crest where it was yellow on the outside, black on the
yeah,
inside, and then the red S. So yeah, this is very golden age. I love this. I love this type of suit where it's like sort of that dark navy blue, but like the red and the yellow pop. I really like that. And then you have like the famous like strong man sort of, which
right.
is what
Breaking the chains, yeah,
Joe Schuster based the physique off of. Like that's why he wears like the undies on the background on the undies on the outside of the suit because it's inspired by Strongman at the time who would wear like the leopard print, like kind of what looked like underwear. So and sort of like the spandex. And so here we're just, it's just a simple image of like him breaking out of the chains, showing how, Superman is strong. And, I feel like we might get like that kind of image, or like maybe it's inspired by older golden age stuff where golden age could be darker, but like not like dark in a way where it was like fucked up, but like dark in a way
Mhm.
where it was like just like, yeah, Superman still, showcased um showcase that, like, sort of that balance, I guess, sort of like those darker, more edgier kind of comics, and that, those storylines, but also holding up that truth, justice, and the American way sort of thing. So, not a ton to say about this image because, it's just, old school Superman just breaking out of the chains, showing his strong nature. But it could showcase like Gunn being inspired by the Golden Age era. And that's really fun. Like, because it's like usually the Golden and the Silver Age don't get like mentioned a whole lot because the Golden Age was so long ago and it was very like episodic. You never really go back like, oh yeah, this Golden Age story, because it was usually, there was no arcs. It was just comic book by comic book. So it was just kind of just basic stories where you just churn them out fast as possible, or just like, Superman coming in saving the day from like gangsters, or you know that could be inspired with like, the earlier Superman days before he like really comes out into the limelight, to starts defeating like aliens and Brainiac and all this other stuff. Golden Age kind of goes into like, oh, he's defeating like, counterfeit rings and gangsters. Once in a while, you do have like a ultra humanite sort of thing where it's like a mad scientist, a human scientist, like transfers his brain into a giant albino monkey. So, it's, you do deal with some of the weirder stuff, but on that side you do have like it could show like the early, that's like in the movie, like the early days of Superman, like the basic stuff, he's like kind of go like he's just kind of like, I need to do what's right, but like he doesn't know how to do it, so he goes after like smaller stuff like bank robbers and like, really basic stuff. And it could also show later on in the film, it's like we always have those smaller things where it's like it's not just aliens all the time. Oh, we need to like look out for the little people, and like, maybe like a guy steals a purse and he rescues like the purse and gives it back to the woman. Oh, thank you so much, Superman. And it's like, yeah, like that kind of thing. So I think that could be kind of fun as well, bringing back those like classic Golden Age stories of like simple stuff, but also maybe dealing with some silliness, but also some balance in terms of like darker edged stories as well. So I like that. I like how he included the Golden Age very much so. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted. Sorry.
I was like,
Uh,
I don't hear
every once in
anything
a while.
talking. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, every once in a while I do that. But basically, what I was trying to say is that this image kind of throws me back to watching one of those Christopher Reeves movies where, like a bullet. I think, was it Christopher Reeves or Brendan Routh, where the bullet flies into his eye and crushes
That
those.
was Routh. Yeah.
That was Routh, yeah. It just is one of those, like, it's those simple displays of power like that, and filmmakers can skip zoom by it because in Man of Steel the approach was he's getting shot at by these automatic weapons, and you establish the fact that this guy is basically invincible. But like in those earlier movies, the Brendan Routh one and especially the Christopher Reeves ones, they had a lot of those examples where they would kind of hone in on those moments and to show this guy's power, and that the chain snapping is like that very classic version of that. So I like it. All right, so let's keep going here. So this is the next panel on the list. So
Mhm.
where is this from, and what does this show us? And of course, what does it mean for James Gunn Superman?
This was a very, very this is a very famous comic book panel. This is from All Star Superman, where a girl is about to kill herself, jump off of a building. Um, but Superman stops her and shows her that there is a voice that's there for her. There's someone who's there for her. I don't want to talk about this too much because so many different people have analyzed this. So many people have talked about this. It's such a famous image. So I won't, talk about it too much. I know it has gotten some flack because it's like a very basic understanding of like, depression and suicide. So I have heard like both sides where it's could be really good, but it also could be really bad. Where it's like it's a lot more nuanced and shade of gray and that kind of thing. So but it just showcases that, Superman saving the little people. Like it's not like she is little because of what she's going. It's just like again, as I was saying before, it's not just like big aliens. It's not just Brainiac. It's not Lex Luthor. It's not, like these big, huge, it's not Bizarro or Metallo or like Parasite, or it's just these big world ending threats or metropolis ending threats. It's just sometimes it's like that's what Christopher Reeve said about Superman, going back to the Reeve um comparison with the groundwork. I mean, I think, and partly the reason why Christopher Reeve is just so beloved is 'cause he understood the character more than anybody, even though he didn't read comics as a kid. He understood that character, and what Superman meant is that he's not just like this guy who flies around just saving the world. He's a friend. He's a friend who's there for you. And that's why that showcases a lot in this panel of like he's he's there for you. Like no
Right.
matter what, he's there for you. And that's what, even though like you could, there's like the whole thing of like nuance and shades of gray in terms of like mental illness and suicidal thoughts and that kind of thing. I don't want to get too dark into that aspect, but um that's what it means. It's like Superman is your friend. He's your neighbor. He cares about you, and no matter what, no matter how much you don't believe in yourself, he'll always believe in you. And that's what,
Right.
famously this panel shows. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
and there's
such
some
a famous
powerful
image.
imagery. You're
Yeah.
right. Like if there's some really powerful imagery in this, like that there's obviously the big panel, but then the four panels on the right side, like you could see, especially like the second one, like you see Superman just there from from behind with a hand on her shoulder, and then where it goes from there. It's just I think these are the kind of moments where I feel like some fans of Superman, like the reason why they didn't like Man of Steel was maybe not because of how dark it was in terms of the tone, how colorless it was because of
Yeah.
the color grading of the Zack Snyder style, or because it was too much violence, or like it was too much of an alien invasion sort of a sci-fi movie. For some people, what was missing was these kind of moments because in that movie, which is the last solo Superman movie we got,
Hmm.
what you see is Clark Kent really just coming to grips with himself and what he means, what his presence means to this world, and then he's just trying to save his mom, his to be girlfriend, and the the people he's gonna go work for, and just humans in general, making a choice between Krypton and humanity, which is very different from these kind of scenes, right? Where Superman is there just kind of like he's already. I mean, you don't have to have a Clark Kent who's already completely sure of himself to do this kind of a thing.
Right.
It's just that we just didn't see something like this. We didn't really see Superman interact with the average Joe all that much
Right.
in that movie, and I think that was something that they missed. And I don't think we really
Yeah.
got that much from any version of Zack Snyder's Superman, because in BVS we sort of almost like we doubled down on a lot of the darker themes, and we really didn't really focus on,
It's
even though we saw him saving people, it was in montages, and it was like it wasn't really this kind of a scene where the movie just kind of stops for a minute, and you just have this like incredibly emotional
Yeah,
moment
let
where
the audience breathe. It's sort of like because like
exactly.
we can only like you got because like you got to find that right balance of like I know like because people made fun of Superman Returns because it was mainly about like it was very light on action because I think Bryan Singer even said like oh they were trying to get more of the female crowd, which is
That's a
kinda
stupid
silly,
idea.
which is so fucking
That's
stupid,
such a
like,
that's a
it's
yeah,
so tone deaf, like, it's so tone deaf, but
right,
that's again, that's a whole other thing, and I don't wanna get into that because it's
right.
brings up, like, a whole fucking sexism argument, I don't wanna get into that, but it just, like That because that one was like very focused on like as I joked yesterday, Superman Returns. I lift things up and put them down. Like that's the movie. Like we don't really get like a ton of action, and it's more like about you know the drama of the character, which isn't bad. It's just they go too far into that direction, and it's not terribly interesting. And then Man of Steel, you have like the entire second half of the movie is just one big action scene. And it's like, yeah, that's fun, but it just gets so fucking boring after a while because it's just like it's two different. It's like it goes like kind of full circle where it gets so boring. It just like either it's just like Superman lifting stuff or just Superman just punching General Zod for an hour, and it's just like when is this gonna fucking end? So like having those little moments lets the audience breathe. And I feel
Right.
like that I do hope, like, sorry to deter, but you'll be happy because I'm referencing Batman. But with Batman Part 2, I do hope they do go for that
Right.
because it shows Robert
Well, they
Pattinson at
had
the
that
end of the
moment at
movie.
the end of the
Yeah, where
movie,
it's like
right?
it's
With
not
the
about vengeance. That's not gonna do anything for anybody. I have to become better than that. And that's what I really wanna see because we haven't really gotten, like, there's, like, the famous scene from I don't know if it's Justice League Unlimited or just the Justice League show where it's like Ace, that scene with between Batman and Ace, and he holds her hand and she dies, and then he carries her
was
but
that the
like that.
just Yeah, you're right.
I don't
Yeah,
know if
yeah,
that was
yeah.
Justice League Unlimited or just regular Justice League, but
Right.
I want to see a human Batman, not just like
Yeah.
Michael Keaton's who was like the Punisher in a Batman costume, or Val Kilmer who was like this monotone dude who just like was kind of there, and then George Clooney just being George Clooney. And then the Christian Bale ones, again, great movies, but we didn't really get those human moments either. That's what I want to like. I think that's the best thing that Batman Part 2 could do is like really show a human Batman, like caring. Like there was that famous scene from that Alex Ross Batman comic where he uses very little dialogue. I think it's like something hope or hope of something where it's just like it's like this big thing where it's like or like Batman is stopping like a whole bunch of like crooks, and then there's this like little kid who's like who's I think like got indoctrinated into a gang, and he's like pointing a gun at him, but there's like tears rolling down the kid's face, and then eventually just Batman hugs him. Like I want to see like that. Like I understand Batman isn't all about that. Like yeah, we have like the cool like detective stuff, and then beating up bad guys and all that stuff. But like I want to see that too. And I feel like, give us more like humanity because I feel like it's so funny that Zack Snyder and company tried so hard to like, oh, it's a grounded Superman. It's Superman in the real world, Superman reality. We're showing this human side of him. Because as I said, I rewatched it recently. I got none of that while I watched the movie. I'm like, okay, sure, we're getting Superman in the real world, but we don't know Superman as
Well,
a character. It's just the
that's
what he is rather than the who he is,
I think is what you mean with about people tend. Okay, so I think the confusion usually becomes. I mean, and again, I'm not trying to. Look. I will forever defend Man of Steel as a great movie because, in my opinion, it is. But um, I agree with you that these, as I pointed out a few minutes ago, that those elements are missing. Like I think what fans try to articulate and maybe don't articulate very well sometimes is the idea that, like you said, like we got to see Clark Kent. I mean, we see like a lot of poignant moments in the movie. We get to see Superman doing some really, heartwarming things, like kind of bringing hope in some way. And, like there's that church scene, I think, which was great. Probably one of the most like mature, like a thematic elements of the whole movie, where he's like, sometimes you have to take a leap of faith, and the trust part comes later. And it's like that part in the church, like that was pretty. It's one of those things that like in the moment you might be like, oh, but then like if you really think about it, that hits pretty hard because if you put yourself in the mindset of Clark in that situation, there's
Mhm.
scenes like that. But what I think we were missing in that movie was a lot of that. What does he mean to humanity in a more like with these sort of very direct examples on screen? Like
Right.
what like in exactly like those can and the thing is, the weird thing is that's pretty much one of the superhero movie 101 things that the first Superman movie established, you know? That was a part of every Christopher Reeve movie, that was a part of, every other Superman iteration we've gotten. I think that's a big part of Superman and Lois, like, you see those moments. I mean,
Yeah,
we
I
saw
mean, you
that
see
moment at
this
the very.
moment. This moment was adapted,
Yeah,
but it was so clever because they used Lois instead
mhm,
of Superman, and it just and it that showed how important Lois Lane is as a character
yes.
to Superman and the Superman mythos. But yeah, sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah, no, I
I
mean, no,
did want to
exactly.
mention that because it was
It's
perfect.
it's a great point. It's perfect, exactly, like, that's the thing, that's something that I don't know why we, because I feel like, those movies, those DCEU Superman movies seem to have a very specific direction, but they didn't really wanna slow down and kinda show us what Superman. They showed that to us, like I said, in montages, like, when Superman is there, the Day of the Dead, and then, or like when he's hovering in the sky, almost like, this godlike figure, and people are reaching out to him in the sky because they're on the rooftops with the entire city flooded around them, those kind of moments. But you just get a preview of it. I mean, maybe it's in the service of, like, let's keep those elements understated. We're focused on the politics of behind what the world
Yeah.
would, how it would react to Superman. Whereas I think a lot of people, like, the expectation has become, because, like we talked about, this foundational movie that was that 1978 Superman film, that we need those moments to be in there, like, especially in a Superman movie. I mean, most superhero movies have that moment, right? Like, in Iron Man movies, you have that moment, like, with whether it's the third Iron Man movie with the kid where he, like, crash lands, and then all of those things. In the second Iron Man movie, in and even in the Dark Knight trilogy, you have moments like that. So for some reason we didn't get, but yeah, I mean, I think we were in agreement on that point. So
Mhm.
I mean, this is obviously, like you said, one of the most famous examples that James Gunn is picking from. But let's go to this one here, and let's talk
Yeah,
about this one.
this is
Where
the
is this
Fleischer.
from? Is
This
the
is the
Flashman?
Fleischer
Yeah.
Superman. It just like again, it goes back to that golden age argument of like having those stories where it's like Superman fighting like giant robots by mad scientists and like that kind of thing. Again, it just kind of goes back to that argument of like golden age stuff. I won't spend I mean, we're half an hour in, so we gotta, kind of keep going here. But yeah, it kind of just goes back to that golden age
Right.
sort of thing where it's like we're bringing in like sort of that balance. It's like, well, it could be like the golden age can inspire the like early days of, Superman, where it's just like him fighting, gangsters and like silly things, but like stuff that's not like big, like Brainiac or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
I
it's also
and
Superman's power set evolved over time. It's not like
yeah,
the first
and
iteration of
this
Superman
is
was as
Fleischer was the
powerful as.
first time we saw Superman
Yeah.
fly, because at this point,
Right.
Superman could only jump because it was easier to animate him flying rather than him jumping from building to building.
Right.
So that we have like this caused like an evolving of Superman where we got him we believed a
Yeah.
man could fly because this is the first
Yeah.
time we saw Superman fly.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
it was a huge step, and we're like, you know what? Screw it. Might as well, have him do. I mean, there were golden age stories of him moving planets. Like he had some unchecked power at certain points. So, but yeah, this is definitely it's such a great fucking image. Like this is so timeless looking. If nobody knew any better, this could have been like shown in like, oh, this was from like the 60s cartoon, like or something like that. Like it just looks so good. Like it just looks
Yeah.
so classic looking, and I love the
It's also got
film
this, like,
grain.
3D effect to it, like, it's
Yeah,
the way the drop shadow is applied. It's not quite,
yeah,
like, accurate to how light would interact with the clouds, but
yeah.
it's
And
just, yeah.
yeah, just like the way it looks, it's just so cool. And I love the Fleischer suit so much. Like it's probably one of, if not my favorite Superman suit. I just love the black, yellow, and red insignia.
Mhm.
Like that's just so great looking. And I really like that. So,
Yeah.
and the color scheme, it's like, it's as I said, this image like goes back to the golden age argument of the first image. So there's that as well.
Yeah. Well, let's keep going here. So, the next image comes from
This
this
one I
panel. You
love.
got Crypto in there, you got Superman, he's not particularly happy. What's going on?
The only dialogue we get, he looked as if he'd been crying. Unfortunately, I don't know the context for this, but it showcases what we all need to see again. Like the problem with, I literally just mentioned what the problem with Man of Steel was. Like, we saw the super, we didn't really see the man, and that's like the most interesting thing about Superman is the man, like the man, like, and
Well,
it
we
was,
saw Clark Kent, but I don't think we got
but
to see
like,
Clark Kent being Superman because he really becomes Superman only by the end of the movie. But I see
yeah,
what
and
you
it
mean.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, it just, we see, like, if I were to guess, I think this is from For the Man Who Has Everything. If I were to take a guess, because this is probably, like that famous story where he gets, taken over by the Black Mercy, and, he has like the life on Krypton and all that, like that very famous story that was also adapted into the animated series. So you have all that. So there's that as well. If I were to guess, I think this is from, somebody will probably tell me I'm wrong in the comments, which is okay. Like, I'm okay. Don't be an asshole about it though. That's all I ask. Just tell me like, hey, it's actually from this. So that's cool. But if I were to guess it's from that, because it makes sense with the context of that story. And it's just like it's just showing the man behind the Superman. Like, that's what we like, just showing a man. And kind of going off what you were saying before, when with the all-star Superman image, um was the how, like, oh, Superman doesn't necessarily need to have everything figured out to like do what he does. It's better that we have a Superman that doesn't have everything figured out, but so that he does it, because like, not always, but like the theme of like giving people, are like the most depressed people, because it's like they don't want what they feel. They don't want what other people to feel what they feel, is they don't want, um they try to help, they try to give, because they don't want the rest of the world to like be as like depressed as they are, like that. And I feel like that could be an interesting take for this Superman, showcasing like he's just a guy who wants to help, and with a guy who just wants to help, he's a guy. He just so happens to have these amazing powers, but he's still like, he considers himself a human because he was raised here. He was a baby when he came here. So he was raised by humans. He sees himself as an American, like, as towards the end of Man of Steel, he's like, I'm from Kansas, General. Like, I'm about as American as you can get. So he's like, don't fucking have these things looking at me and all this shit. So
That was
there's
one of
that
the
as
most
well.
relatable parts of that whole movie.
Yeah,
Like,
like, and
you,
which
you get
is
a pretty
even
good giggle out
funnier.
of that.
I get a giggle out of it only because you can hear Henry Cavill's British accent leaking out when he says Kansas, so that always
Hmm.
makes me laugh.
And yeah,
But
yeah.
so it's just ironic. But yeah, that's what like I would really want to see, was like, sure, you can, and also, I hope we do see Crypto. I know that's probably the not as, prominent factor, but I want to see Crypto, man. I don't want to see him voiced by The Rock, or I don't want to see him be Superboy's sidekick. I want to see
Right,
Crypto
right,
just being
right.
awesome. We love
Yep.
Crypto. Like, just how to make Superman even more relatable? Give him a dog. Like,
Yeah,
dogs are
yeah.
fucking
I mean, hey.
awesome. Give him a superpowered dog with a cape. Hell yeah. So
Wouldn't put that
that's,
past James Gunn. Definitely wouldn't put it past him.
but yeah, like this, like it's just like a man who's like still experiences those things, especially
Yeah,
with how heavy the For the Man Who Has Everything
yeah.
story is. And it's just like, even though he is a human and still considers himself human, it was like there was that whole story of like having this family, what happened if Krypton didn't explode and all that. So it's just like this very gut wrenching, heartbreaking story. And it just like, it shows that like there's a lot of nuance and a lot of like gray areas of how Superman experiences his life, because how would he be different if he was on Krypton? How would he be different if he wasn't raised on Earth? Would he be the same? And then like there's like all these different experiences you can pluck from that, all those questions you can like really study with that, and not just in a for the man who has everything context, but just a guy who's like experiencing like all these different things. Like he is a human, but he has these powers. He still goes through the everyday struggles. It's just like at the end of the day, he might be bulletproof, but his feelings aren't bulletproof. With his experiences that make him who he is aren't bulletproof. Like there was like because like that's like the basis of like John Kent dying. Like
Right.
that I think another very missed opportunity in Man of Steel. I just prefer like that he dies of a stroke or a heart attack. It usually depends on that, but it's like I don't think it should be this grand statement of like John Kent. No, I don't want my son to like I don't want people to see what my son can be because the world is not ready for him yet. I think it'd just be like
I mean,
showcasing
yeah,
Superman can't save everybody. However, also it's just Clark experiencing life because you know what? Life can fucking suck. But in this in the face of that, like the fucking life will beat you down until you are nothing. But what Superman does, the what his power truly comes from is the ability to stand up anyway, despite life beating you down, because it's just that's how it is. Life
yeah,
will never be fair, but it's Superman shows us because he does it every day because he's experienced so much loss that it just try to stand up. Don't even try to stand up. Maybe one day it's just, you're on your knees, maybe another day you sit, maybe another day like you'll eventually get there, but eventually you'll stand because
yeah,
standing is hard. It's very hard, especially with how life just beats you down. But Superman believes you'll stand, and that's okay. You don't have to fly. You don't have to jump across buildings. You don't have to shoot lasers from your eyes. Sometimes you just need to stand, and that's okay. And I feel like this image shows that a lot, and I really like how Gunn is like showing the man behind the super, and I really like that. But
yeah,
I don't want to spend too much time on this image because we got to get through more of this. But yeah,
yeah. Well, this is the Superman for all seasons picture.
yes,
So,
inspired
um,
by Superman the movie. There was those that beautiful imagery. I forget the
yeah,
cinematographer for Superman the movie, but showcasing that seems kind of having that Norman Rockwell feel. Just and I feel like this also showcases like Gunn's maybe inspiration just from a picturesque point of view. Like just that cinematography because like say what you will about
it was
Guardians of the Galaxy, good or
by
bad.
the way,
Oh,
it was Jeffrey Unsworth.
okay. But
This was
yes,
his last complete film of his career. He passed away during the post production of this movie, unfortunately.
yeah.
But
But
yes,
yeah, cause say what you will, but whatever your favorite Guardians movie is, whatever your favorite Gun movie is, whatever your favorite Marvel movie is, I still stand by that Guardians 2 is my favorite MCU movie. And just the cinematography in that movie is fucking beautiful. Like Ego the Living Planet, just any scene is just beautiful. Like what is reminiscent of this scene is Gamora. I think this was after she tells off Peter, like because Peter is like so enamored with finally finding a father and like that whole scene. So she
yeah,
finally is like, "Fuck it," leaves, and then she's just sitting there with her thoughts, with her feelings, and it's just this beautiful landscape. And it's so wonderful to look at. The CGI is beautiful. Like that's what
very
CGI
well
should be
done.
used for. Very
Yeah,
well done. That was that's and then like she also like cut like there's these things that were like little prickly plants that were annoying
yeah,
and
they're
then she
just
just
flying
fucking
off. Yep,
slices it.
yep,
And then she slices them off and it's very funny. So yeah, I think this is just very simply
yeah,
his inspiration for the look of the film. And Tim Sale, that's some pretty fucking good inspiration to me. the man who did the artwork for this. He passed away a couple years ago, but brilliant artist, left behind a great legacy, no pun intended, of artwork and some great comics. I have Superman for All Seasons on my bookshelf, but I recently finally read it, and it's an amazing story. Anybody who hasn't read it, please do. It's amazing. But yeah, I think this is, just put it simply, this is just what Gunn is looking for in terms of a look. And it also shows the humanity and smallness of Clark, as we were talking about before. It's just like the small of Smallville, like how those humble beginnings, and like identifying with like John Kent and that relationship as well. And I really like that. And just like it's just so beautiful to look at. And
Yeah.
it also helps that David Corenswet is probably like the perfect picturesque look for Tim Sale Superman, who's
Yeah.
known for like sort of that over exaggerated character
Right.
work.
Right. Yeah.
Um
I
and
mean, I don't know if he's gonna be wearing such baggy pants, but
But yeah, honestly,
that
I hope so, because that is part of the
yeah,
look.
you
That
think
is
so?
part of the look because
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, because that buys into the whole like disguise of Clark Kent, is that something you can't really show on screen, because it's like what he does. Christopher Reeve kind of does it in the scene where it's the interview with Lois Lane. It's like it's the first interview like Superman does with Lois Lane, where he's Clark Kent and he's like kind of hunched over. He takes the glasses off and he just like has like this
Yeah.
picturesque like sort of look to him,
Right. Yeah.
because that's what Clark, he wears baggy clothes, he hunches over, his hair is coiffed differently.
Mhm.
He speaks. His voice is a few pitches higher than his normal voice, and the glasses, they do help. And it's just like the idea of like, you don't expect Superman to live among us because he's a god. He has all these powers. Like, we don't expect Superman to live among us, but that's who he is. Clark Kent
Right.
is who I am. Superman is what I do. That should be, if you're gonna do a Superman film, use that. Like, you can fuck everything else. Like, it doesn't matter what you do with this character, comics, animated series, other movies, just take that fucking line. Clark is who I am. Superman is what I do. From, I think, those post-crisis comics, it was also used in Lois and Clark. That's the character in one fucking sentence. Use that. That is the character, the core of Superman. That is him. So I know people aren't good. Oh, like, oh, how are you gonna? Because nobody's looking for Superman. Nobody's looking for him, like from a guy on the street. Nobody's like looking like, oh, look at this. Like, oh, I'm really looking for Superman. Nobody's looking. Nobody cares. Have you been in a city before? No, like people will bump into you, not give a fuck. Like, people are trying to get to. They're doing their lives. They don't care. They're not gonna look at some
Well, I mean,
guy
Henry Cavill
wearing
also,
glasses.
like, just stood around in Times Square and nobody noticed him. Like,
Yeah,
with
underneath
there
the
was a
sign, like,
the Superman versus Bat was it BVS poster or was it Man of Steel? It was one of
it
those
was a
posters.
BVS. It was a BVS
BVS poster. He's like,
poster.
he's on the freaking poster.
And
Nobody
Roger
so
Moore was saying when he noticed, because I think they were filming one of the Bond movies, and or like I think he just noticed. I forget what it was, but I think they were filming in London. I don't remember what the sound stage and all that, but
yeah.
Roger Moore noticed when he would go to a restaurant and he was dressed as Superman, he would get fucking floundered with paparazzi, fangirls, fans just wanting his autograph, just wanting pictures with him, wanting all this stuff. Christopher Reeve, when he would go to a restaurant just wearing a suit and glasses, nobody noticed him. Like,
Yeah.
that's just how it
Well,
is,
also
man.
because, like, when you're James Bond, like, that's what you're dressing in that three-piece suit most of the movie, right? So it's that look. Whereas, I mean, it's also, yeah, you're right. I mean, Christopher Reeves also had that look where he looked iconic, and yet you could miss him if he
Yeah,
passed by you on the street.
yeah.
And
And the baggy clothes help because he wore clothes like that
yeah,
were 2, 3.
yeah,
It wasn't Captain America where he wears medium shirts to make him look buffer. It's the complete opposite because he doesn't want to be,
Yeah.
noticed on the street, so he wears
Right.
baggy
Well, I
clothes.
mean,
That's
Captain
dope.
America in the MCU doesn't even have a secret
A secret
identity,
identity
right? So
because
he
it's like
doesn't need to worry
they
about that.
let one improvised line set the entire trajectory for secret identities in the MCU because that
I'm
makes
Iron
sense.
Man. Well, it literally set the tone for, yeah, exactly. Even the whole how they
Yeah.
wrapped. Anyway, yeah, with how it comes full circle. So let's keep moving
Yeah, of
into the
course.
next
Sorry,
image.
sorry.
Yeah,
Of
no.
course.
Um,
I mean,
this
look
is
at the
iconic.
fucking look at the
Yes,
logo, like in the corner,
right.
like with the picture that Gunn released. Like
Yeah,
again, Kingdom Come looks like it'll be a major inspiration for the film. Where I've said this many times, where it looks like Superman is just gonna come out and be like, "Hey guys, don't be edgy, annoying assholes, and just be good and kind like me." Like that's although I feel I'm interested because that's kind of a surface level look to Kingdom Come as a story. Um, because the basis of Kingdom Come, I like to call it civil war, but done right, because both sides aren't right, but aren't wrong. And it's just like the whole basis of Kingdom Come is a very shade of gray story that's kind of looked at through the lens of black and white, because the way we
right.
view the story on on the surface level is that all these extremist 90s heroes that are like legacy characters are wrong because they're killing their villains. They don't care about innocent people. They just want to, they don't care. Like they just want to beat people up and all that. So but the thing is, then Superman comes back from retirement and he's like, okay, this is wrong, we can't do this. But at the same time, he takes these drastic measures that aren't right. Like he has like the fucking prison in Kansas that keeps these heroes locked up. And he, and he there's like this totalitarian like sort of edge to the whole thing. Not Injustice Superman. That's a whole nother thing. But it's sort of like this
Yeah,
iron grip, I guess you could say, that isn't totally right either. And then you have Batman's side, who's kind of caught in the middle, that's just like, all of this is horse shit. But it's like but it is kind of bringing that Silver Age eye into the what at the time was the Bronze Age, and or the bronze, kind of bronze modern age lens. But there's a lot of complexities with Kingdom Come as a story, and I feel like Gunn is taking more of like the idea of like Superman coming into the limelight, telling off all these like edgy assholes, but maybe also realizing, sure, the Superman fan in me just wants him to be like, hey, stop being violent, edgy assholes like the boys, and be kind like me. But could also be the aspect of Superman realizing that, much like in Superman and the Authority, the Grant Morrison miniseries that came out a couple years ago, that sometimes the authority is needed. And since with this version of the Authority, I think they're going to be grabbing from all different sorts of things, like the Elite, which was sort of the commentary on the Authority used in What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, which I think will also be inspiration for this, as well as Stormwatch, which was UN sanctioned. So I feel like the Authority will kind of like be all encompassing of those different aspects, and sort of be like the human team that needs to take the well, human, there's some human, some not, team that'll need to take those drastic measures. Maybe Superman does see that. He's like, I don't think that's right, but once in a blue moon, those measures need to be taken, and kind of like take that balanced eye. But where it's like, it won't be like this town ain't big enough for the two of us type of thing. It's like, okay, there's different types of morals for different kinds of
right.
situations, and as a whole, we should try to be compassionate, care about innocence, not kill. But there could also be the side of the Authority where they're needed to
Right.
help, though, like help, but like in or kill in like those types of situations as well. So there's that, and I think
Yeah.
Kingdom Come will be heavy on that. Plus, we'll see some of those characters in the film. Like we'll see Green Lantern, not the Alan Scott version. We'll see Mr. Terrific. We'll see Hawk Girl, not Hawk Man. But very interesting. Also bringing in
Yeah.
that Golden Age, Silver Age vibe a little bit as
I
well.
mean, but I'd love to see like some like that version of Flash. Stargirl, we've obviously had a TV show of.
Hmm.
These are some classic characters, and maybe they'll be part of the DCU in the future. I mean, certainly it seems like right now the boundaries of the DCU are seemingly
Hmm.
endless. So yeah, let's keep going here. I mean, we go from that to this, something that looks
The
very
Silver
different,
Age.
but
The
the
Silver
Silver
Age,
Age,
very
yeah,
brilliant. So this shows like the sillier, cornier side, which I was mentioning this when with the first image with the Golden Age sort of side.
yeah,
This is the Silver Age side where we got the Superman family. Like we have all the characters here are Superman, Supergirl, Bizarro. You have Jor-El and I don't know what the Silver Age version of called, but his mother, I think it's Lara Lorvan. It might have been Lara Inzi. Superman's mom name changes in like every continuity. It's always Jor-El, but it's like her name always changes. So
well, I mean, the only Superman mom name that people care about, of course, is Martha. So that's
okay.
but
But yeah, and then you have Lori Lamaris, the mermaid, in the bottom right-hand
yeah.
corner, and then you have Lana Lang, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Perry White, and then I think that's Cat Grant. Although Cat Grant might have come later, I'm not totally sure. You have Mixia Spitlick up there, and then you have John and Martha Kent. You have Comet the Super Horse. Let's talk about that. The better Streaky the Super Cat, Crypto the Super Dog, and then you have the
Yeah.
Legion of Superheroes, and then you have the Super Monkey. I forget what his name. He has a name. I forget the name though.
There's a
But yeah, like
I didn't even notice that. Oh yeah, in the corner. Okay, Super Monkey. That's hilarious.
yeah, and then I think the guy behind Bizarro is the guy who invented. I don't know if that's like Lex Luthor because Lex Luthor had a whole different sort of thing, but that might be Emil Hamilton. That might be a little bit too early for him. I don't know how old Emil Hamilton is, but I think that was just the creator Bizarro. I don't know who that is, like back in the Silver Age. But again, this sort of brings like we're getting that balance of all these different inspirations. Like we're getting that golden age of like maybe I would like to think that the golden age brings about Superman's early days in his career, stopping smaller threats, bank robberies, gangsters, small cats in trees, that kind of thing. That's the smaller stuff. This, I think, will showcase the future. And I'm not just talking about Legion of Superheroes, but this is what
Right, in the bubble. Right. Yeah.
yes, this is what Superman will be because this is all these characters like you have like this whole array of like stories that can come out from this. You have like the Krypton stories, you have like Lori Lamaris, like that whole weird thing. You have like Bizarro with like cloning and scientific sort of. You have the very earthly realm of like Metropolis, like you have Lois Lane, Lana Lang, and Jimmy Olsen, and all that. You have those stories as well as his parents. You have like the weird animal stuff, like you have like the Legion of Super Pets, that kind of thing up there. You have like the weird surrealism of Mixie Spitlick, and so and then you have like the sci-fi 50s retrofuturism sci-fi that the Legion brings. So this is like what Superman can be, and I feel like this is James Gunn teasing about Superman's future, and I really like that because you
Yeah.
can get whole different types of stories that we can see because Superman is this grab bag of all types of shit. And that's what's so great. It's just like comic books are just so versatile in these stories and just seeing just seeing the amount of inspiration here and seeing what you could do with all of these different types of characters is just really awesome. That's just really awesome. Like I named like 10 different stories you can do with these characters, and that would be awesome. Just I
I
don't
mean,
want to see Superman fucking mermaids. Outside of
yeah.
that, like outside of that, we're good. Like
Did
that.
you did you see that whole like thing that Jennifer Hall was it Jennifer Holland who answered a fan question like every month of this year with something like an emoji next to like June 2024 or something, and there was like a mermaid-esque emoji next to one of those. I think that might have been a
Uh,
Peacemaker reference, but I'm
it's
just
probably
saying,
a
like,
bit because
probably
I was because I remember we were talking about what is the mermaid
Mhm.
and then I finally watched Peacemaker. I'm like, oh, it's just Vigilante being a doof, and I'm like, all
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
fine, whatever. So okay,
Also, I wanted to see, so in this image, you're getting the a Supergirl suit there, right? Like this
yeah,
Supergirl suit is pretty much what we saw in the I want to say, yeah, what was it? It must have been the 80s, like the Supergirl movie that came out around the time of the Christopher Reeve
yeah. Except
era.
she had a red skirt instead of
Oh, was it a red
a
skirt? Okay. Well, but
yeah.
the design is pretty much very,
It's
quite
very
similar, and
similar, yes.
yeah, and then I think with Supergirl, the TV show, they started off with that, but then eventually, I think in the last few seasons, they moved into
The
more of a
pantsuit,
Superman-esque shoe with the
yeah,
pants instead of the skirt.
yeah.
This could, I mean, maybe it tells us something about what Supergirl is gonna look like in
That
this
could be
iteration of
awesome. That I
Superman
would
as
like to
well.
see more of that traditional suit at first, and then, like,
Yeah.
maybe she gets, like, the classic because I know, like I don't mind the blue skirt, I think the red skirt also looks good.
Mhm.
I mean, we could have the, '80s headband suit that we almost got in the Supergirl movie, but they decided against it. That could be fun, but it's just Supergirl has a lot of fucking
Yeah.
weird ass suits,
Well,
like,
of course, we got the one in The Flash. We have the one from the Justice League animated shows. Of course, like we mentioned, the original Supergirl movie. You see the one here. I want
We have the hot pants suit right
to.
here
Yeah,
from the
that's. I mean,
70s.
hopefully, we're not getting that. But what I wanted to ask here is, like, if you look at the capes in this particular image, they're pretty
Mhm.
short. I know in basically
Yes.
all modern superhero iterations, regardless of whether it's Superman or not, they tend to go with like longer the cape, the more majestic it is, right? Like, and
Yeah.
then of course you have the whole Edna Mode scene from Incredibles, no capes, like it's,
Yeah.
and the whole montage of everybody sucked into the, because that, of course, that would happen to Superman. He's gonna be trying to save the plane, get sucked into the turbine. But anyway,
I think it's
what
just
are
a
your thoughts
proportion
on that? I like the
I think
short
it's
cape.
just a proportion thing. I think they just
Yeah,
didn't draw it right because I think what they were trying to do, they were trying to showcase all the people, and I feel like having, like, a long cape would kinda screw up with that, so it kinda looks shorter than it's supposed to be. I wouldn't say
yeah,
that for Supergirl because I think Supergirl had, like, a pretty short cape when she first started,
yeah,
but I think it's just, like, a proportion thing. I think they meant for it to be long and flowing like it
yeah.
normally is,
Hmm.
but it's just like they wanted to showcase all the people and they didn't wanna block them with the cape, so it's just kinda drawn weird. I think that's all it is.
Okay, I mean that's fair enough. I mean, it's also like the Bizarro cape is shorter too. Like, and it's not like flying in the wind, but it's not as short as it's like the Superman cape looks. It's maybe, yeah, you're right, probably the proportions, but also like the way the Superman, the suit the cape kind of tucks into the top. I like the way that's done there. It's kind of, they did that pretty much the same way in Man of Steel almost, but certainly that's how it was in the Brendan and Routh Superman too, I believe,
Mhm.
right? The
Yeah,
and then the
I think
Kingdom
so.
Come one as well. So, but yeah, let's keep the ball rolling here. I think I don't know how many we have gone through so far, but I know we have more to get through. So here's another one. This
Yep.
one, he's just got a Superman shirt on that I guess you could buy at the corner store or like at your local retailer, like a Target or a Walmart or something. And then you've got the cape. I mean, this doesn't look like an official Superman suit. Like, what would this be? Because obviously it has the S, but like,
Yes,
where does
this
the S?
is
Like, how do you explain the S? Like, like Superman is in a rush. He doesn't have a suit on him, so he just grabs a shirt off the shelf at a
this
store. And
is from Grant Morrison's Action Comics from the New 52, and this showed, I believe it was the early years of Superman where he just had a shirt, a cape, and then pants. That was like
okay,
his suit, and then he eventually got the classic suit. So I think this is just showing like this is what it might be in the early days. Like I think this is like kind of the first suit we'll be getting is just like the Grant Morrison cape, shirt, pants, and boots. Just like kind of like an impromptu thing. Maybe we won't even get the crest. We'll just be getting like a shirt, like a blue shirt. Kind of like what kind of like what Tom Welling's Superman was, where he just like wore a blue shirt and then a red jacket. the red blue blur, as he was initially called. But yeah, I think that's just showing like the early days and like kind of feeding. Unfortunately, I have not read the Grant Morrison Action Comics run. I have heard it's very good, as opposed to a lot of the New 52 stuff. But I think this is just like, oh hey, this will be where Superman is early on in the movie before he really comes out into the limelight, as I mentioned, where he'll like notice all these edgy superheroes like killing people without a moment's thought, and like he'll be wearing this, and then he's like, I need something more to like show people, like I need to
Yeah.
like become like embrace, truly embrace something, and I can't just be a guy wearing a shirt and pants. I gotta have
Right.
something brighter. So
Well,
he
yeah.
creates the suit and then comes out and be like, hey, don't be assholes. Like that's like, again, that's just
I
my
mean,
theories,
yeah.
but
But the thing is, I don't know how long that's gonna last. Like, for example, in Superman and Lois, it's just like that montage at the beginning in the first
right.
episode. And even the Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies specifically, I think they had that whole with the whole like Macho Man Randy Savage scene where like he's going wrestling in that, and then but it's montage in a way. Like it doesn't take very long for them to get to the suit that we see them wearing throughout the majority of the movie. So it could be that it's in there, but it's only in there for a very short period of time.
Right.
The red blue blur would be a really cool way to kind of pay homage to Smallville if they kind of like if that's a newspaper headline, instead of crime, Gotham City, water wet. It could be red blue blur
Yeah.
in Metropolis.
I mean,
And
when I
um,
think it was when Flash was on Supergirl,
yeah,
when the Flash was like doing his thing and he like jumped universes or whatever, and
yeah.
like Cat Grant was like, okay, I named Supergirl, so I have to name this superhero. She's like, the Blur, and then like all this other stuff, and I'm like, and then
It's a
and
little.
then Barry Allen was like, what about the Flash? He's like, sounds like a guy who's under a bridge flashing people with a trench coat. And he's like, well, I think it's really good. Like, that's, I will say what you will about Supergirl, the first season was pretty good. Like, it was
The first
silly,
couple
but
of
it was
seasons. Yes, I mean, I actually thought that like after that there was maybe one, I forget which one, it was the fourth or fifth season where I thought like they sort of had like I think when this explored the Martian Manhunter's backstory a little more deeply, they did
yeah.
that relatively well. But then yeah, I mean it just sort of yeah, it just got over the top. I mean, as most CW shows in the Arrowverse did, but yeah. Yeah, this would be interesting to see for sure. I mean, I like you, I wouldn't want to see the crest because like how do you explain the fact that he's got the crest on there? Where does it come from? If this was Superboy, I get it, but like if this is Superman, then I don't understand like the
Well,
origin of the
people
crest
make
without him.
their own shirts all the time. Maybe you
I
just
No,
like
I get it, but
went
I'm
to
saying like the
Etsy and
crest.
just
Yeah, because it's all about the story logic of where the crest come. Because like, I guess the Man of Steel side of me, like, thinks that, "Hey, the suit comes from Krypton, the crest is your family crest," which I think we're gonna get some of that. It seems like we're gonna stick with some of that, but then again, even in the Christopher Reeve movies, I don't really know if they ever really told us where the suit am I remembering that incorrectly? Where does the suit really
I
come?
know we
Do
got
we
the
see the
cape.
origin of it?
I know the cape because like they wrapped him in a blanket and that blanket
Yeah,
became his cape.
right.
So yeah, I think that's kind
But
of all
I
we
don't really
got.
know if he
But
got the full story behind, like, that suit. They just sort of
yeah,
they skipped forward with a few of those things back then, but, like, nowadays, everybody wants to know every little itty bitty detail. So, anyway, let's
mm.
keep going. So, the next image on this list is, of course, I believe this is from Superman the Animated Series, right?
Yes, sir, it is.
The iconic, shot. I mean, I love this color of this shade of blue that they have in this.
Yes, I love
Um,
this blue,
like,
like
yeah,
darker
like
royal blue. Love that.
like,
Love that.
it's really good shade of blue. In fact, I think if you look at let me see if I can pull this up. I believe I still have this up. Like, if you look on the edges of this image, it is a pretty dark shade
Yeah,
of it's a especially with the shade of yellow they're using, it accentuates it. So if you extrapolate that out to a full suit, I can maybe we're getting something very similar to that. I mean, what do you think is the source of inspiration from this image as far as
I think
James Gunn's?
like Superman the animated series is just fucking classic. It's just
It
like
is.
fantastic
That's
shit.
definitely
Like it's
true.
just like I think this is just James Gunn like just having impeccable taste. Like you just like, I
Yeah,
love this show. It's a fucking great
yeah,
show, and you know what?
yep.
Add it to the list.
I think
Add to
that's
the
kind of
list.
it. Like, I hate to sound, and I'm not just saying that because we're kind of over an hour. I'm like genuinely saying, like,
Yeah.
what else is there to say? Everybody loves the animated series.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
fucking
even
great.
Man of Steel, like in Man of Steel, they have that at the is it no, it's not in Man of Steel, it's in Batman
It's
versus Superman,
no, it's
right?
in it's the
No.
end of Justice League where
Oh, it
he,
is.
has
You're right, Justice League. I mean, okay, the theatrical version of Justice League, I prefer the one with the color. I don't know
same
why in
here.
Zack Snyder Justice League they changed that suit to the I mean, whatever, like, I
I
actually
know
if
there's
there's one
some
thing,
comic book
like
precedents, but it doesn't work
yeah.
like to me.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, if there's one thing that I preferred in the as far as the Snyder cut versus the theatrical version was that shot at the end, and you see the classic suit, and
yeah,
you get
it
that
just
shot, and he's
works.
wearing that shirt and tie too. Is it looks very similar. He takes the glasses off. He's walking away from the
Yeah.
Daily Planet.
Although it is
Iconic.
funny how it's such a classic shot. I didn't really think about this until like only a couple years ago. How the fuck does he fit the cape under the shirt and pants? Where does the
I,
cape go?
maybe the cape is like in a backpack. Maybe that's in his briefcase that he carries. Maybe that's he doesn't carry much other
It
than the
just
cape
like
in
he just
there.
rips off his clothes and the cape is just there. Like,
It's
where the
just
fuck did that cape come from? Like,
maybe
because
it's tucked in his pants? I don't
like
know.
at least with the flash ring, like he has like the
Right.
not microscopic, but
Yep,
like the thing, and
yep.
then like with like some special like chemical shit, like it grows and
Nanotech and
then
all that.
the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
flash can phase into solid matter. So that's how he puts
Right.
on the suit. Where the fuck does that cape come from?
I
That's
don't
what I
know.
want to know.
Hey, he's Superman, like, deal with it.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
I think
how it
that's all it is. But yeah, I think this
happens.
is
Yeah.
just Gunn having great taste. And like, because the
Maybe
thing
they'll
is,
poke fun at it
uh,
at the movie.
like I think like the anime that what that would be a good scene since
Yeah.
telephone booths aren't a thing anymore. Like
Dude,
he's
yeah.
trying to find a place to change, but he can't find anything. This would be something very James Gunn.
I
I
mean,
kind of
yeah,
hope it
yeah.
doesn't work where it's like he's trying to find a telephone booth, but then he goes past a construction site and all he can find is like a porta potty. So he changes in the porta potty. That's very James Gunn. That
Yes,
is
yeah.
very because that's right up his alley with his type of humor. A
Mhm.
friend of mine who
I mean,
hates
it's
James
also
Gunn
like they
would probably
did
be
this
like, "Oh my
in
god, he would do that. I
yeah.
fucking hate that." But like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that fits. I feel like he
It
would do
would.
something like that.
And it's also something that I really enjoyed about, like, Spider-Man: Homecoming, where most of the movie Spider-Man is in, like, residential neighborhoods. Like, we have seen Spider-Man, he's swinging around the skyscrapers of New York City, so he's, his webs shoot into the sky, and all of a sudden he's, got to navigate the suburbs, and he's like, "What do I shoot it at?" Like, he shoots it in the air, he's got nothing to, like lean on to
Yeah,
latch onto, which is something filmmakers would always hide by keeping all the Spider-Man action in the city. And in that movie, they're like, you know what? We're gonna poke fun at it for a second. Let's see how Spider-Man figures his way out of this situation. And you get a
yeah,
nice giggle out of it, but it's also like it acknowledges something that people obviously have questions about and have always wondered. So I
yeah.
hope you get
I
that. I really do.
I just
I hope
think
some other superhero points out, where did you get? I see how you're dressed in the cape, but where the hell did the cape? Well, in the suit, but do you like tuck that cape in your pants, or like maybe I don't know, some smart ass, maybe Guy Gardner is gonna
Guy
point that
Gardner.
out.
I was just thinking
Yeah,
like Guy Gardner
that's
would
probably
fucking,
what's
and then Superman one shots him. No, I just
yeah.
instead of Batman, it's
Does
Superman.
does
But yeah, I
does
think
the
this
cape
is
give you a veggie while you're in your suit at work? It's like something like that.
yeah, it's just really fun. And it's just like
Better
because the thing is
dialogue than
the
we can write.
animated series is just so vast with how it
Yeah,
balances. Like it can do really silly stories, but then it can do really serious stories. Like as I was talking about for the man who has
yeah,
everything, they adapt that in a two-parter, I think, really well. And like it could do darker stuff like that. And then they also do like Dark Side and Brainy, how they do Brainiac here, and like they could do darker stuff like that, but also silly stuff. So I think this is just Gunn being like having that balance of all these different aspects of Superman and like encapsulated in this, and Gunn just having great taste because the animated series is awesome. So there's that as
yeah.
well.
Yeah. Alright, well, let's keep going here. We've got this image.
I think this
Pretty
is the last image, but yeah,
yeah,
it's just it kind of brings in that very human aspect of Superman and what I hope they do, because it's just like the thing I was like as much as great as a lot of Superman media is, like what I hope that this image shows us, that they're not going to do the will they won't they crap with Lois and Clark, because it's just like I'm just kind of sick of that. Like I think we're
Yeah.
past that point, especially when we've gotten Superman and Lois, which just we got that montage of like I saw her, I fell in love with her immediately. She was amazing, she was wonderful, and then boom, the next scene he sees is like I show her I'm Superman, then I propose. It's like we get them married, we get them happy, and they're a couple, and it's wonderful and it's amazing. We don't need to see like will they, won't they? We already got 4 seasons of a show with Lois and Clark.
Right.
Great as that show is, but it's from like that kind of bygone-ish era of like, oh, look at this cute little like sitcom, rom-com type of shit. It's like, okay, that's cute, but like I just want to see Superman and Lois just being a power couple. Like that's all I
Right.
want to see. Like,
Oh.
and we'll get that from hopefully the get-go. They'll just be a happy couple, and maybe they'll have
I
like
mean, they don't need to like go through all the formalities of it straight away. Obviously, like it could, but I see what your point is. It's like they don't really become official at the end until the end of Man of Steel in that iteration. But and even in the original Superman movie, it's sort of it's not like a will they won't they, but it takes a while to get there. And then in
Yeah.
Superman and Lois, I mean, you start out with them because obviously we're moving on from Supergirl, even though that was no longer. I mean, how that where they divide wherever the dividing line is between the Arrowverse and Superman and Lois, you start off with a family. So like, yeah, but I see what you mean though. Like, there's no like will they won't they? I'd like to see that, and then
because
like you
it's
said, like
just like
they're
it
both
works.
exactly.
I just hope this isn't James Gunn teasing us that we're gonna get a sex scene of them in the sky, where it's like I don't want to see that.
No,
It
I don't
just
think that's what this.
well, it shows her taking off her shirt.
I
It's
right.
implied she's kind of straddling
Maybe
him in the second
well,
shot, but like I don't want to see
maybe that will be how the movie ends. Maybe that's that Top Gun Maverick shot of the plane flying literally into the sunset. That's what this movie is gonna. That's how it's gonna end potentially. That would be a very classic, and then like the circle sort of closes up into the black screen and the credits roll. Yes,
No, just kidding.
that's all, folks.
But
That's all,
yeah,
folks. Like something
I
like
just
that.
hope
Yeah.
what this represents is just like we'll see them as a
Yeah.
happy couple, because we gotten
Mhm.
that for 4 seasons almost 4 seasons with Superman and Lois, and that's like the best Superman anything we've gotten in years. So I just want to see that. Maybe they'll like have like typical marital stuff, not marital stuff, but like relationship stuff, like
Right.
just like regular, and showcasing that what I was talking about before with the man behind the Superman, where it's just like he's a guy dealing with normal shit, and you know what? People deal with normal stuff like relationships all the time. So I really like that, and I hope that this kind of like shows that, like just like Lois and Clark just being awesome together and just taking on the world one step at a time and just being
Yeah.
awesome together. And because
Yeah.
as Gunn
Yeah.
said, this is a year 2 Superman, not a year 1 Superman, not an origin story. So
But
hopefully,
also, like, I think, like, sometimes when we say that, people take that literally as in this is literally the second year
no,
he's
yeah,
been
no,
Superman.
no. Yeah.
Like,
What I mean
it's just he's not like a total rookie. This is not like Man of Steel where he's
exactly,
putting on the
exactly.
suit for the first time. He's
Right. It's
a
not
couple
an
of steps
origin
removed
story.
from that.
I know,
Exactly.
because like it's not
Yeah.
an origin story. It's not literally year 2. Although
Yeah.
the Batman, I think it was actually literally year
I
2.
think you
Like
might
it
be
was,
well, with that one, they definitely did that literally. Yeah,
they
they did take that
did that
literally.
literally, but I think
Right.
it's just like we've seen the origin so many times. I do
Yeah.
hope with how much All-Star Superman is like inspirational for Gunn here. I do hope we kind of get that, because like they explain the entirety of Superman's origin in 4 panels, 1 page. Doomed planet, Smallville, Kansas, father dies, here we are. Like Superman. Like that's what we get. That's all we'll get. And that's good, because we don't need to see that again. Like we've gotten that so
Right.
many times. We've seen that before. So I just think I just hope that like with year 2, like giving like we'll see them dating for a bit. Obviously with quote unquote year 2 stuff, what I like about year 2 is like we're not seeing the origin again. We're not seeing him be a total rookie, but also I like it's like, oh, he still doesn't have everything figured out yet. He's still trying to figure things out. Like how in The Batman, when Robert Pattinson like is trying to navigate the city with the flying suit, and it like and that which was like a proto like how the cape
Yeah.
glides like in Arkham
I mean,
City where you can glide with
he
the cape, and he
narrowly
just
avoids
smacks
dying.
into a fucking
Yeah.
bridge. Like obviously
Yeah.
he would make that mistake. He's only
Yeah.
been doing this for like a
Mhm.
year or two, and even though Superman
It's literally like a wingsuit. Like
yeah, it's a
it's not even
wingsuit.
like a suit. Yeah.
Yeah, so like
Um,
this is a Batman. Obviously, Batman is genius level intellect, all that, but like he's still a guy who makes mistakes. So obviously
right.
he would make a mistake like that. He would like smack into a bridge and
Right.
like do all that. So yeah, so anyway, like sorry, I keep going back to Batman, but Superman, it's just like I want to see them just like be dating. We got the formalities out of the way, and
Yeah.
we're just getting them being awesome together.
I mean,
So
yeah, and you
yeah.
know what the other thing is? Like a lot of these images, there's some iconic imagery here from the comics. One thing that I like about the MCU is they do make an effort to bring some of those iconic comic book panels to life. And when you see that, I mean, it's a great way to bring along the comic book fans who have been there and will always be there. That's your core audience. But it also, tends to come across well for the average audience that's watching the movie. Doesn't have any sense of reference for where that imagery may be coming from. Like for
Mhm.
example, in BVS, you have that Dark Knight Returns, that iconic image where Batman's like perched on the side of a building and he shoots the batarang and then flies out before
Yeah.
Doomsday shoots or like the building destroys the building with his heat vision. So and and then you see the like lightning and then all of a sudden you get that, if you pause it right there,
Yeah.
there's that like literal comic book panel, and you see a few other things like that too later in the movie or even before that point in the film. And that's not the only instance. Obviously across the MCU, you've seen that whole Iron Man and Captain America fight with the shield and the Iron Man hand phasers or whatever in Civil War. So I think if there's one thing that we will probably get out of these images is some of these images might literally translate into like storyboard panels that then become shots in the movie. And I'm excited to see that. The other thing that I've noticed is a lot of these images, and that might also be because in a lot of the comic books, Superman's cape has the S on there. And if they go the right, especially if they go the route of the cape is the only thing that comes from Krypton, then that's where the S will come from. And then maybe he
Yeah.
says, okay, I'm gonna also put the S here. Like, and that's something we've talked about in the past. I really like the idea of like, whether the S is gonna be on the cape or not. Like, let's get an answer to that question. So whenever we get the suit reveal, hopefully we'll find out the answer to that too. But I mean, yeah, these are all the inspirations for Superman that James Gunn has put out there in the world. I mean, they're all very important in their own ways. I think they help inform us who Clark Kent, the man, is going to be in this movie, how he's going to interact with the world, what he's going to mean to mankind in the film as Superman, and then of course we're going to see, how Lois Lane figures into that, as well as all the other characters that they've got, the other Justice Society characters or Justice League characters, the Lanterns, and all that. And it's going to be exciting to see how that plays out. There is one thing that Hunter Iggy pointed out in
Yes.
the comments that I wanted
Yes, I
to
did
address
see
before
that.
we finish up, because James Gunn just posted this earlier today. So let's just take a quick look at it. And you can see the comments on Instagram just going wild. Like, what does this mean, James?
James,
James,
what are
what are
you
you
cooking?
cooking?
But yeah, Deadman is a pretty awesome character. We haven't really gotten him a lot, and he's a pretty cool character.
Mhm.
But yeah, Deadman is sort of like kind of a dark humor sort of character. And if you don't know anything about Deadman was he was a I don't know if he was a stuntman or like an Evil Knievel, like Daredevil kind of guy. And I think he like saw the wrong thing or did something to the wrong person, and he eventually gets killed. But he's like taps into like sort of magical shit, and he becomes like an invisible ghost who has like a bunch of these powers, and he can like possess people and help them type of thing. But yeah, Deadman's a pretty cool character. I don't know a ton about him, but yeah, that's essentially the character, and he's pretty cool. and a lot of people are saying, "Ooh, Justice League Dark." Maybe I could definitely see a Justice League Dark
Yeah.
raising from this. That could be
Yeah.
really cool. I would love to see, like I know because I know Doug Liman was doing a Justice League Dark, then Guillermo del Toro was gonna do a Justice League Dark. Then I know
J.J. Abrams,
JJ
right?
Abrams, Joseph
Yeah.
Kahn, they were all gonna do Justice League Dark, and it just never like I would say look up that concept art for the Doug Liman Justice League Dark because there was a really cool dead man shot where it was, oh my god, the artwork was beautiful and it was just really fucking cool with how like his powers work and how it like work it was or it actually it was either Dead Man or the Spectre. I forget which one, but it was yeah, that concept when that concept art I'm like, why don't we get this shit? Why do we get Margot Robbie's ego trip Birds of Prey movie, but we don't get this? Like that makes no sense to me. Like, come on, guys. I wanna see this. I wanna see Justice League Dark. It's just like so fucking cool, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's some great artwork from there. Like, I think isn't this is one of those.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. It was the Spectre, not Dead Man. But there was
Yeah,
also a one for Etrigan the Demon, where it's like I think Jason Blood transforming into Etrigan. Yeah, that one. That one is fucking awesome. Look at that body horror shit you could fucking do with that. It's so cool. So fucking cool. But yeah,
yeah.
I would love for them to do it just like get someone with a vision. I would say if Joseph Kahn, he's usually a music video director, but there's the Dead Man one. There it is. But yeah, really cool. Joseph Kahn, I would say he's a good name because he definitely had a vision for it, and I really he had some really good ideas for that. And he's sort of like he's kind of an indie director. He hasn't really directed anything in a while, but I feel like that like get like a small time director who could do like something big because I know Doug Liman, he's like off doing like some I don't know what he might be doing stuff right now. Guillermo del Toro he's doing the Frankenstein movie. JJ Abrams, keep him away from DC and any franchise ever, please, for the love of God. Just have him not work ever
Yeah.
again. That would be great. So
I mean,
just
Doug
and then,
Liman is also he just made the Roadhouse movie.
yeah,
Um,
Roadhouse, that was it. So he's doing
and yeah, and he's
Roadhouse.
meant to do that Tom Cruise movie in space. I think yeah, which is gonna be interesting. Um, yeah, I don't think well, J.J. Abrams, I think studios are becoming aware that he's not necessarily the savior for their franchises as he
Profitable.
once was
Yes.
espoused to be. But yeah, I mean, this is interesting. I mean, honestly, horror drama, like it's whether it's a movie or a TV show. I'd love to see what becomes of it because it's if you go by the artwork, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, and obviously the other artwork that we just looked at, yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what becomes of it. I know,
Although
of course, we've had
I
hints
will
that there's more projects going into
yes.
production this year.
Yes, I
So
mean, we did get Teen Titans that was
yeah,
greenlit. Although speaking of the Roadhouse remake, Jake Gyllenhaal did state he was interested in Batman. I don't know if we mentioned that yesterday. I might have, but I would
I
love
don't
to
know
see
if he
that.
did. No, but yes,
That would be
I think he
awesome.
would work.
He's
I
because the
mean,
thing is,
he
he's like
fits
the
the
perfect
description.
age. He's the
Yeah,
perfect age.
absolutely.
He's early 40s. He looks younger than that. So if they want someone who's a little bit younger, maybe late 30s, he can pull that off. He doesn't necessarily have that Bruce Wayne look, but he has that Bruce Wayne attitude and he could definitely be a brawler. Like, I mean, look at Roadhouse, so he could definitely, and then he's also played really intelligent characters, like Nightcrawler, although not X-Men's Nightcrawler, but I will say, anybody who's watched this who hasn't seen Nightcrawler, fucking watch Nightcrawler. That is Jake
Dude,
Gyllenhaal's
that's
best performance.
one of the most underrated Jake Gyllenhaal
The
movies
fact
of
he
all time.
wasn't nominated for that still
Yeah,
fucking pisses me off.
yeah.
But he was excellent in that showcase. Well, that's more like his Joker audition. I feel
Mhm.
like he has the range. Like he can do like sort of that man on the like broken psyche. He can
Yeah.
definitely,
I mean,
he
and
could be a
he's an action
brawler. He can,
star, right? Like
yeah,
he's
he's an
been in
action star.
he's
He's the
done
main
some
course.
mayhem with the ambulance movie.
And he
He was
has super
Mysterio.
he
Yeah.
has superhero, stuff. He did audition for Batman Begins. I think he was David S. Goyer's top choice for the role.
Yeah.
And then he was almost Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2, because I think Tobey Maguire had faked a back injury, and he wanted more money, and they threatened to drop him, and Jake Gyllenhaal
Yeah.
was that runner-up if they fired Tobey Maguire. I could have seen that. He definitely could have done Spider-Man way back when. And then he was Mysterio, which not a good movie, but he was good in it, and I hate that they wasted him because he was this
I
Mysterio
mean,
was
it's
a
one of
villain
those
we had
movies that
before.
starts out well, right? Like then
Yeah,
there's just
it
the
just gets
moment
worse and
the
worse.
moment
He
you see that big reveal, oh, this was all a
my
fad.
invention barf.
Yeah.
Really? That's the
I
big
don't
story. That's the big backstory twist we get.
Mhm.
Bullshit. But anyway,
Yeah.
this is running a bit too long.
I mean,
but
you know
yeah,
what? Like this Jake Gyllenhaal, I think he can also play like James Bond. Like you look at this picture and I'm getting
he's American though. That's the problem.
I know he's American. I'm saying this is giving me Casino Royale vibes from like Daniel Craig, and how he's basically wearing Hawaiian shirts half of that movie. Yeah, he could pull it off. I mean,
Most
this movie's
definitely.
also, I don't know, like I haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, but yeah, Doug
I mean,
Liman
look
is
at that.
working on
That looks very
that.
Bruce Wayne.
Yes,
Look at
he can
that
pull that off.
fucking suit right there. He is pulling that shit off immediately.
Mhm.
Most
Yep.
definitely. And then,
Yeah.
and Danielle Melchior, who's also in the movie, she worked with James Gunn before. Maybe she can
Mhm.
put a good word in and be like, hey, I worked with this Jake Gyllenhaal and he's great. Way better than Alan Ritchson, because Jake Gyllenhaal can actually fucking act, So let's get him there.
Yeah, I mean, well, I will say though, like, Alan Ritchson is
And he's also Billy
he's
Magnuson
grown
on
as
the
an
right.
actor.
On the right,
Yeah.
Booster Gold. He would be perfect
Yep.
for Booster Gold. So I think that's also something to keep in mind. But
That could work.
just get the entire Roadhouse cast just in the DCU. Just go for it.
Yeah,
I think
it
that
would
would be
work.
awesome. But yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, well, I mean, hey, we were talking about Superman, so just going back to that for a second.
I love this
Oh, not
inspiration.
Deadman,
But yeah.
Superman. Yeah, great inspiration. All of these images, absolutely fantastic. Of course, James Gunn was asked by a fan, and he responded with, "These are the inspirations for my version of Superman." And I mean, I don't know if this is all inclusive. I'm sure there's other inspirations. I think the other day he posted like this picture of literally like a box full of
Storyboards. Yeah, I think I saw.
storyboards, like
Yeah.
panels, like he's. I mean, that's a lot of panels, index
It
cards,
says index
hand drawn
cards. Those are
index
fucking
cards.
small too. So
Yeah, I mean, I've done those before, but like, I mean, to do it for like, I've mostly always done them for short films. Like to do it for a feature length film at this scale, and then of course, I'm sure like this is not the be all end all. There's a reason why they're sitting in the box. I mean, I'm sure there's, as far as reference goes, previs and everything else that goes into it. But this is where it started. Like that's these box full of index cards is where that story developed as he wrote that script. So yeah, I mean, look, James Gunn's heart seems to be in the right place. I really like where he is in terms of with his understanding of the character, what he wants to do with Superman, and of course all the signs are good regarding all the other things that are happening in the DCU, including a possible Deadman project, as and Teen Titans. I mean, we'll see where that one goes, live action Teen Titans movie. So I mean, hey, as always, it's been great talking to you, John. I know we went pretty long today, but I think this one was warranted.
just like it's just like there's so much
yeah.
greatness here to talk about, and so I
Absolutely.
really liked that. I really wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate it. I mean, I think for those of you guys watching, I think hopefully you guys appreciate it as well. Hit the like button. We really appreciate that. And, hit the subscribe button if you are here often. Then that helps us out on the channel as well. And of course, it keeps you up to date on when we are going live with DCU Daily. We are here each and every day, Monday through Friday. And I'm sure we'll be back tomorrow talking about more DC related content, whether it's Superman related news, Batman, something different. We have Fancast Friday coming up this week. And it's this week we have already added a couple of new options into what projects we can fan cast. Of course, if you have any ideas on who you would like to cast in any of the upcoming DCU projects, leave that in the comment below, put it in the chat, and we'll be happy to go over that and share it and talk about it in one of our future episodes. But until next time, guys, go out there, watch something DC related, and then come back here and talk to us about it. We'd love to hear from you. It's always great to hear from you guys on the show, whether it's live or in the comments. And we'll see you back here tomorrow in DCU Daily. John, it's been a pleasure as always. Until tomorrow.
Young money.